all you ghoulish gourmets, and happy Mother's Day to all you mothers. Now, I realize that I may not have too many people in here for the live, and that is perfectly fine. In fact, I hope many of you are spending some quality time with your mom today and enjoying all the Mother's Day festivities, whether you're taking her out to eat for a nice Mother's Day lunch, if you're having a tea time for your mother. I know, hey, Blissful, by the way, I know Blissful was planning a big tea party with her mom today, and I believe maybe her aunt. Um, so I totally understand if people are doing that today instead of tuning in for a movie Munchies. The great thing about this is you can watch this on the replay. And hopefully, my audio issues have been fixed since the last time. The last couple of movie munchies, you people watching may have noticed staticky audio, or if you watched it on the replay, you may have noticed staticky audio, for which I apologize. Hopefully, that is fixed. Okay. So, what are we going to be making today? We are going to be making Norma baked homemade cinnamon rolls inspired by a recipe that my mom cooked or baked when I was growing up, and I absolutely love these cinnamon rolls. I'm sorry again for the crazy hair, but you know, with me, anything is possible. Also, the way this camera is positioned on this tablet is not a good view of me, but it makes me look like my face is really huge, and it looks like I'm like like I'm Godzilla over the tablet. But it is what it is. So I have my oven preheated to 450 degrees, which, by the way, because I said we're going to be using biscuit dough to make these because this is the way my mom always made them. Now, um, thank you, Blissful. You're always so nice. You say, "Oh, stop! You look good," but um, But I know there are many different ways to make cinnamon rolls, including yeast rolls. But I thought for this particular movie Munchies that we would dispense with having to wait for yeast to rise and all of that good stuff. Okay. And I hope that you guys are thankful for that. And I don't know why, but there's a big shadow. So that is not food on my face. See, when you're on camera, sometimes when you're staring right at your face, you notice all kinds of things. It looks like I got a big blob of chocolate or something there, but it's not. It's a shadow in the corner of my mouth. So, um, anyways, I'll try not to be distracted. The reason why I'm not distracted whenever I'm doing other types of lives is because I'm not standing here looking at my face like I am now. I find everything wrong. But when I'm on with another person or we're doing a watch along, I'm paying attention to that other person or the chat or the movie that we're watching or whatever. So I'm not focusing completely on my face. So apologies for being distracted there. So anyway, we're going to make the more simplistic biscuit dough based cinnamon rolls. And these are just as good, if not better, in my opinion, than something that you would go out and get or make with yeast, and definitely better than canned cinnamon rolls. But don't ask Steve about that because Steve says, well, you're making them with biscuit dough. They taste like biscuits. Well, what other dough are we going to use unless it's yeast dough, you know? So the recipe that I used, and actually forgot to bring up the haunted food cam. So you can see that I've already made out my biscuit dough, which rolled out to about a half inch thick for this. It's a little ragged around the edges. I realize that, but hopefully uh, that won't deter from y'all's enjoyment of these cinnamon rolls or will make you not want to make these cinnamon rolls. Okay. So, Like I said, I have my oven preheated to 450 degrees. The recipe I used, and I'm going to try to put a link to this recipe in the description for the video, is Betty Crocker baking powder biscuits, which means, of course, that you're using all purpose flour and baking powder and a little bit of salt and all that. Now, if you have another favorite recipe that you want to use, by all means do that to make your base for your cinnamon rolls. Okay, so I'm going to briefly go over how to make these baking powder biscuits, the Betty Crocker recipe, and then we're going to get to the good stuff. We're going to get to actually making these cinnamon rolls. So you need 2 cups of all-purpose flour. They recommend gold medal. If you have gold medal in the house and you want to use it, by all means, please do. But gold medal flour is traditionally a little more expensive, and I get the store brand. You need a tablespoon of sugar if desired. Now, generally, these things are going to be sweet enough by the time we put all this stuff on there that I usually don't put the tablespoon of sugar in there. But if you like that, if you want them to be just a little bit sweeter, then you can do that. 3 teaspoons of baking powder, a teaspoon of salt, a half cup of shortening, and I do use butter flavored Crisco or butter flavored store brand shortening if you don't want to get Crisco, and 3/4 cup of milk. And I use 2% milk for this stuff. Okay, so I think the key to make, whether you're making biscuits or you're making cinnamon rolls, the key to getting good dough is cutting that shortening into your flour and your baking powder and your salt really good until it resembles fine crumbs. Now, the way I achieve that is I will put my flour and I will put my baking powder and I'll put my salt in there. Then I'll put my half cup of shortening and I will take a kitchen fork, a large kitchen fork, and I will just go through it like this. They say to use 2 table knives going different ways. I just find it a lot easier. I find the fork method a lot easier even than a pastry cutter. Okay. Now you try what you want and you can see which works for you. But for me, a large kitchen fork does just fine. So I just keep, pressing that fork down into the flour mixture until it resembles the fine crumbs. Once it looks like that, then I will put a little bit of flour on my, either my cutting board or whatever, your countertop or whatever you're using to roll this out on. And I will either use a rolling pin or, in the case of like I did today, just press it out with my fingers. Clean hands, please, though. Do remember that. So once you get it patted out about a half-inch thick, you are ready to add the layers of cinnamon roll goodness to this. And that's what we're going to do now. Okay, so I'm going to lay my recipe over there. Because at this point, I really shouldn't need the recipe because I've made these baking powder biscuits a lot, but the 47-year, almost 48-year memory is not too good sometimes. And when I'm going to be doing something where I'm going to actually be on screen with you guys, I want to make sure that my I's are dotted and T's are crossed, right? You may hear my birdies singing back there. They're happy today. So I am going to make the haunted food cam, the solo layout, so that you guys can see. You can see my dough all out there. And kneading the dough is also a good thing to do. Play with the dough a little bit and get it nice and as smooth as you can. You can see I've got some cracks in mine, but that's okay. So, what are we going to do first? Okay. So, you can either use sugar, or if you are on a sugar restricted or no sugar diet, I have this in my canister, but this is just Splenda sugar blend. Okay. So what we're going to do is, I can get this up. What we're going to do is we are going to just take a little bit of this and sprinkle it all over this dough. Okay. Don't worry if it gets on your cutting board or whatever. We can clean that up later. I never claim to be the neatest person in the world. Let's make sure that we, get your sugar, sweetener pretty much all over the dough here. Okay. We want this to be nice and sweet, right? Because this is what cinnamon is supposed to do. Then you can just gently take your hand there and kind of spread this out where it just covers every square inch of that dough, right? Just kind of get it even there. Okay. Or it looks like it snowed or something. Or other things we could say this look like, but we're trying to do a nice cooking show, so yeah, don't want to have any drug references, do we? All right. So once we got, and remember, clean hands, folks, before you do this. Especially if you're going to be, you're going to have family over or something to partake of these cinnamon rolls with you. All right, so now we're going to take our cinnamon. We're going to do the same thing. Just going to sprinkle it around there, all right? This is something, since we're not using yeast and stuff and we don't have to wait for anything to rise, this is something you could fix today for your mom. And you could have it with tea or coffee or, whatever you want. Or you could just have it by itself. In fact, this is probably not a traditional, like, British thing. But I may fix some of these for tarragon tea at some point. Thank you, Blissful. Blissful says, please hit the thumbs up. Thank you. Now we're going to take some butter. And I would prefer to use unsalted butter, but I accidentally got salted. But I don't think it's going to hurt anything because we don't have a lot of salt in our dough. So what we're going to do is just cut off slices of butter. We're just going to stick these strategically and symmetrically as well as we can. And this is probably going to take about a whole stick of butter, okay? Because what we're going to do here, we are going to make 2 layers of this stuff, okay? We're not just going to make 1 layer, we're going to make 2 layers. This is how I remember my mom making them too. So, I remembered her making them when I was a kid, but also when I got older as well. All right. So what are we going to do? We're going to repeat the same process. You say you add some bacon bits, that would be yummy. Well, if that's your thing, then by all means, yes, add bacon bits. So, and I also mistakenly meant to spread that cinnamon around, and I forgot to do that. But if you forget, it's not a big deal. I just sometimes like to mix it in with my sugar or sweetener, right? You wouldn't think that something so simple, really, to make once you get the biscuit dough done would be so delicious, but it really, really is. Okay, and we're going to do another layer of cinnamon here. You can use less than I'm using here. You can use more than I'm using here. It's, whatever your preference is for how much cinnamon you want, how sweet you want these things to be. All right, so then now we're going to make another butter layer. Okay. And it's okay if you have to open another thing of butter. You may have to use like a half of a stick, another stick of butter. And some people might say, oh, God, dang, that's a lot of butter. Well, yeah, but here's the thing. It's all going to pay off in the end. Guys, let me get me another stick of butter out here. I'm not, more than likely not going to use a whole stick. I'm just going to finish up putting another layer of butter on these, right? You can also slice this as thin as you want. You don't necessarily have to have it as thick as I have it. You know, you could also, since Blissful brought up bacon bits, you can also put a little brown sugar or brown sugar substitute. Like Splenda has a brown sugar substitute as well. All right. You could also put a little bit of that on. Okay. Put our butter away. All right, now here's going to be the fun part of rolling this up because we're going to cut these into slices, okay? So very carefully. And it's going to be kind of difficult because you've got a lot of layers. You've got 2 layers of butter, and you've got 2 layers of cinnamon, and you've got 2 layers of sugar or sweetener. And, you know, I'm not the best at rolling these, but I'm going to try my best here, okay? And if you have to stuff the butter back in there, by all means, you know, and then try to get it to have a little bit of a seal here because we want it to be sealed pretty good whenever we go cut these. And this ain't an exact science, folks. I ain't even gonna lie about this, right? You're gonna have some of the ingredients fall out. And it's okay, you know. In fact, some of that sweetener and cinnamon or sugar and cinnamon that comes out, like spread it out there on top of the dough. Just, you know, we don't want to waste anything, right? That'll make it even better, right? Dress it up a little bit, kind of shape it. And if your first one doesn't turn out that great, don't worry. You keep doing these things, it'll get easier and easier and easier. Okay? I'm sweeping some of the, that's one of the good things about having a cutting board over your sink. You can just sweep this stuff in there and get some of that off there. Okay. No big deal. Okay. Let's just shake that a little bit, make sure it's good and sealed before we start cutting it, right? Leslie, you say today was coffee and snack gift basket for mom. She's flying. LOL. Tomorrow is the tea. uh, special occasion decadence. Yes, that is right. Special occasion decadence. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to slice this roll. Okay. That's going to make our cinnamon rolls. Okay. So we're going to get out my big knife here, my Pioneer aluminum knife, and we're going to put these. I'm putting these in a cake pan. You can use a cookie sheet if you want to. You can cut these as thick or as thin as you want to, but I would suggest making them a little on the thicker side because they're just going to stay together better, right? And you can see some of that yummy goodness is coming out there. And that's okay. Just, take your roll and get some of that on there before you put it in your pan, right? You can also use a cookie sheet. I don't know if I mentioned that. Um, and you can put them in the pan touching each other. It's okay to do that. I do these like I do my biscuits. Some people like to have soft sides, and if you like soft sides to your biscuits and your rolls, then you want to have the sides touching. You see, this is why we put so much of that stuff on there, because as you're cutting, some of it's going to spill out, right? And you see that butter rolled up in there? That is going to make this so good. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, Dana, these aren't neat little rolls. Well, they're homemade, guys and gals. They're not supposed to be perfect, okay? It's not really going to matter once we get these back. Right? If your rolls kind of try to fall apart when you're putting them in the pan, never fear, just kind of press them together. Nobody said they had to be perfectly round or anything, all right? And I've got about 11 rolls. One of them's a little small. So you will probably get about 10 or so rolls out of this recipe, right? I'm just trying to do what my mom always recommended I do and clean up as I go along. It'll make a lot less mess for you later on. Don't pay attention to my dirty dishes there. Got to do some cleaning of dishes here shortly. Because this stuff goes everywhere. Sugar or sweetener and cinnamon will go everywhere, right? I'm just trying to do a quick cleanup before we go to the next step with this. And never fear, I'm going to bring these cinnamon rolls in the pan over to you. And you may be wondering, okay, so how long do I cook these? Never fear, I'm going to tell you that. You're going to cook them just like you would cook the biscuits, okay? You can see my cinnamon rolls there. And we are going to be putting these in a 450-degree oven for 10 to 12 minutes. Usually I do it on the 12-minute side just to make sure these are done, but I know all ovens are different, so you will have to be the best judge of that. So we're going to put these in the oven for 12 minutes. And I'm going to bring me back because we don't really have anything to see there on the haunted food cam right now. I'm going to wipe this up just a little bit. So we now have our cinnamon rolls baking. That was quick and easy, right? Um, or I feel like they're quick and easy. Like I said, once you get that biscuit dough done, that your hard part's usually over, and you can get to the fun part of this. So again, I know that a lot of people were probably spending time with their mothers, but I thought it was kind of a happy accident, like a Bob Ross thing that that I chose to do this. I wasn't even, really thinking it was Mother's Day, that I chose to do this on Mother's Day, and that I was actually doing a movie Munchies and watch alongs this weekend. Because I think the whole thing about cinnamon rolls and Norma Bates was a mother, and not a very good mother, but she was a mother. And I just think that this is entirely appropriate for today. So what I'm going to do, I mean, I know it's only 12 minutes, but I'm going to take myself out of the stream. And if you want to come back in about 10 or so minutes, because my stuff's been cooking for a couple of minutes as I blabbed, then we'll take these out of the oven and we'll get that icing made. I will show you how to make the icing for these. And then the fun part, the really, really fun part, I'm going to be tasting these things on camera for you guys and gals, to show you that it's not going to kill me, right? All right. So I will be back in a little less than 10 minutes, folks. Okay, gang, I am add the haunted food can back. I am back now. I have just taken these lovely cinnamon rolls out of the oven, and I will show you what they look like here. So there is the fruits of our labor there. Uh, Now, you may notice that they're not perfectly symmetrical. And that's okay, guys. I am here to tell you that some of the most delicious things on this planet are not perfectly symmetrical. Don't let that tell you that, oh, they can't taste good if they're not perfectly round or whatever, okay? Because that's just not true. Okay, keep in mind also these are homemade. We're not using anything to make them keep their round shape or anything like that. Okay, so as you can see, I have my bowl here ready to mix up our icing for this. Okay, now people that are on a sugar restricted or no sugar diet, okay, keep in mind, you can still have this. Being a little bit lazy. There is a way to make a powdered sugar substitute with your favorite sugar substitute. Okay, but I opted not to do that today. I am just using, as you can see, I'm using Domino's powdered sugar. Just don't go crazy with these folks. Keep in mind that we were using a sugar substitute for the base, for the breaded part of the cinnamon rolls. We're going to have a little bit of powdered sugar in this icing, okay? So we also have some vanilla, and I just have Baker's imitation vanilla that you can get at Walmart. And I also have about a half a cup of 2% milk here. We may use all that, we may not. The key about this is more of a glaze. It's meant to be drizzled over the cinnamon rolls. It is not meant to be taken with a knife and spread on. It's not thick. It's not like buttercream frosting. Okay. Just keep that in mind as I'm mixing this up. Okay. Also, this is not an exact science. This is homemade. So, what I would suggest is you guys, as you're mixing your own icing up to put on these, that you put a little bit of powdered sugar, put a little bit of vanilla, put a little bit of milk, mix it up, see if it's the consistency that you want. And if it's not, add a little more milk or add a little more powdered sugar, add a little more vanilla if you want a little more vanilla flavor. It's not an exact science. It's a preference. Okay. It's also addictive. Yeah, that's right, Blizzle. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Let me make this the solo layout here so that you guys can see what I'm doing here. We're going to start with our powdered sugar base. So, like I said, this is not an exact science, so I don't have exact measurements. Okay. So, I'm just going to put a little bit of powdered sugar in there. Okay. To start. And again, it may get all over the place here. All right. Now, I'm going to start off with putting, let's put a couple of teaspoons of vanilla in here. Okay. And if you want more, if you want less, if you want to go with just, oh, I want a teaspoon or I only want a half teaspoon, then these are your cinnamon rolls, okay? All right, so not gonna pour all of this milk in here. We're just gonna pour a little bit in there, okay? About half of the cup, okay? Then we're gonna mix this up, okay? That's pretty good. If you decide you want it to be a little thicker, put a little more powdered sugar in there. You decide that you want it to have more of a vanilla taste, by all means, I'm just trying to get this, the little bumps to get out. The powdered sugar will sometimes get lumpy. That's okay. Just stirring it around a little bit. All right. And then I'm going to take a little taste of it here. And I think I'm going to put a little bit more. Powdered sugar in there. Okay. All right. Now, we are going to set some of this aside here. Okay. We're going to bring, we've also gave our cinnamon rolls a chance to sit and slightly cool down. You don't want them to completely cool down, all right? All right. Mix this up just a little bit. All right. So remember when I said we're just going to drizzle this over, right? Exactly what we're going to do with this. You don't even have to do it with a spoon. If you want to just take the bowl and drizzle it around. And you put as much or as little of this as you want on there. And if you have to mix up another batch, that's fine. You can even take the spoon and kind of spread that over those. Okay. All right, so let's get that out of the crevices there, put it more on top. Right. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to take this small one out of here. And, okay, hold on a sec. All right. Okay, so if you're messy, folks, I've got icing, icing drizzling out. But these ain't bad. And like I said, you can make these things any way you want. You can make that icing where it's really white. You know, mine was kind of a little bit clear. I don't think mine was quite as thick as my mom, but that's a great thing about experimenting. You can keep experimenting until you get that icing just the way you want. So, you know, you don't have to make it just exactly the way I made it on here. But And also, I'm critical of myself. Um, they never quite taste as good as my mom's. My mom was the best and is the best cook ever. The best cook that ever lived, in my opinion. Um, and I know this is a little, well, you guys can't see that right now, but I had some of that icing in between my fingers and it was sticky, which of course that's part of the fun, right? Thank you, Blissful, for saying they look delicious. They actually are very good. I think actually I'm going to mix up another batch of icing. I'm going to make it quite a bit thicker, and I'm going to put that on there. So again, this is not an exact science, folks. Um, it could be trial and error till you get it to the right flavoring and all of that you like it to be. But that is it. We have officially made and baked Norma Bates homemade cinnamon rolls based on Lori Estes' tried and true recipe. That's my mom. And I want to be sure to remind everybody to, if you can, tune in for the back to school watch along tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. Um, we're going to be doing back to school, like I said, starring Rodney Dangerfield and Keith Gordon and a few other people sprinkled around there that will be definitely be familiar to you guys and gals. But I'm going to get on out of here and I'm going to mix me up another batch of icing to put on these. But as always, I want to remind everyone to be kind to one another and blaze that trail. You guys have a wonderful day, and all you mothers out there have a fantastic Mother's Day. And I'll see everybody next time. Bye for now.